Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to a new playthrough on the channel. After our visit to the Terra Mystica universe last week, we're going back to Arkham this week as we play Arkham Horror 2nd Edition. In this game, we're trying to defeat whichever Ancient One we're up against, whether by sealing the Ancient One away via gates, or winning or defeating the Ancient One in a final battle. We can lose if the Ancient One defeats us, but we're also going to call it a loss if the Mythos deck is empty. So in order to make a somewhat manageable video, I've trimmed the Mythos deck down to 17 cards, which will give us four full rounds. And if the deck is empty after that, we're going to call it a loss. With a lot going on today, I don't want this game to turn into a grind as it tends to do. With that setup, let's go meet today's Ancient One. Today we're going to be up against Yig, 10 Doomed to Awaken, which, with wanting a short game, is probably one of the best Ancient Ones to be up against. So let's look at how Yig modifies the game. Yig's Anger. When Yig stirs in his slumber, he gains a Doom token whenever a cultist is defeated or an investigator is lost in time and space. At the start of the battle, each investigator is cursed. Any investigator that's already cursed is devoured. So as we can see, as we're going to see in a second, cultists are probably really hard to defeat because we also have to deal with worshippers. Yig's worshippers are actually disguised serpent people. Oh joy. Their bite is highly poisonous. Cultists have a combat rating of +0 and a combat damage of 4 stamina. Wonderful. So, Yig is actually suggested as the introductory Ancient One. I tend to like Azathoth a little bit more as an introductory Ancient One, but if you're looking for an intro to the Ancient One battle, yeah, I'd probably go with Yig too, honestly, just because you get through the game a little bit quicker, but that's just kind of my random musings on how to introduce people to this game. Anyway, speaking of introductions, what say we go meet our investigators now? I picked out our investigators randomly last night. I'll adjust that slightly, maybe move him over. Okay, I think that'll work. Our first investigator is Roland Banks of the Fed. 4 sanity, 6 stamina. As usual, I'll put sanity and stamina on when we take it. Home is Arkham Asylum, fixed possessions $3 and 2 clue tokens, and his special abilities relate to those. Intuitive. During the upkeep phase, if Roland has 2 or fewer clue tokens, he gains 1. An expense account. If Roland has less than $2, he gains 1. So basically a poor man's version of Jenny's trust fund, but random musing aside, speaking of random, let's go through his random possessions. So first up, he's got a common item. Understudy's script as a tome. Exhaust and spend 2 movement points to make a will -2 check. If you pass, gain a spell, gain 2 clue tokens, draw a spell, gain 2 clue tokens, and discard Understudy's script. If you fail, lose 1 sanity. His will is actually pretty good, so that might be worth considering, but we also have a unique item. He starts off with... Ooh, an Elder Sign. New plan, depending on where everything falls. Any phase. When sealing a gate, lose 1 sanity and 1 stamina and return this card to the box. You do not need to make a skill check or spend any clue tokens to seal the gate. In addition, remove 1 Doom token from the Ancient One's Doom track. That might change my plan a little bit. He also starts off with one of our allies. He finds John LaGrasse, +2 will. You can claim monsters with the Endless ability as trophies. Normally Endless means you wouldn't be able to, but that says you can. And then his skill... His Expert Occultist. Any phase, exhaust to reroll a spell check. Right. A federal officer as an occultist. Who knew? Anyway, we'll take a look at his personal story. Roland looked through his notes again. This is ridiculous, he said. My report's going to get me locked up in a loony bin. This case has weird cults, magic spells, and the apparent end of the world. All I need is some demented fishmen or something, and I'll have all the makings for a best-selling novel. Well, maybe you should pay a visit to Innsmouth, then. I think he comes out with Innsmouth, but... Random musing aside. Buy the book. Pass. If Roland has 5 or more clue tokens, place Heck with it in play. If Roland is arrested or driven insane on the fail, place Take a Vacation in play. And then we've got a relationship as well, but we won't go through that until we go meet his relationship partner, so let's do that now. Roland's relationship partner is, well, one of his relationships is going to be with William Yorick, the Gravedigger. 4 and 6 like Roland. Starts at South Church. Fixed possessions are $4. Randoms are 2 common items, 2 unique items, 3 monster trophies, and a skill. And we'll take a look at his special abilities. Secrets of the Dead. Any phase, William may spend his monster trophies as though they were clue tokens on a 1-for-1 basis, and bury them deep. Each time William spends a monster trophy, he may decide to return it to the box instead of placing it back in the monster cup. And then we'll take a look at his monster trophies. He's got a ghoul, which is 1 toughness, a star spawn, which is 3, and a rat thing, which is 1 for a total of 5 toughness. There are definitely effects in the game that are sensitive to how much toughness of monster trophies you have. So we'll take a look at his items. First, his common items. He has a lucky cigarette case. Any phase, he can discard it to reroll 1 skill check. His other common item is a carbine rifle. Physical weapon, 1 hand. Any phase, exhaust before making a combat check to gain +5 to that check. And then he's got 2 unique items as well. He finds... Wow! We've got 2 Elder Signs right off the bat. Any phase, when sealing a gate... Actually, we saw this with Roland earlier. And... Crystal of the Elder Things. Any phase... Place 1 sanity token from the bank on Crystal of the Elder Things to avoid paying the sanity cost of a spell you're casting. If there are 3 sanity tokens on it, discard Crystal of the Elder Things. Last up, his skill. So William, well, he's got his personal story and his relationship with Roland. But his skill is Grapple. When you make any fight check, add +1 to each die you roll for purposes of checking for successes. 3 becomes a 4, etc. So when William fights, his 4s enough count for him as successes. And then his personal story. When William dug up the first corpse, he couldn't believe what he was seeing, but he put it in the shed for safekeeping anyhow. When he found the second corpse, he began to get a little worried, but he put it in the shed with the other one. After the third corpse turned up, William decided he was going to have to talk to Father Michael about them. After all, this shed was getting kind of crowded. Things undreamt. Pass. If William is blessed, place Heaven and Earth in play. Fail. If he's knocked unconscious or driven insane, place Alas, Poor Yorick in play. And then his relationship with Roland and William are friendly rivals. Between you and your partner, the investigator with fewer monster trophies gains +1 on combat checks, and the investigator with fewer gate trophies gains +1 on fight or lore checks to close gates. No effect in case of ties. So right now, Roland has a +1 to fight checks has a +1 to combat checks, I should say. So that's William. We've got his relationship as well, but we need to go meet his partner for that. Our third investigator is George Barnaby. As you've probably been noticing, I haven't been putting I don't have the sliders out yet because I'm going to wait until the first upkeep to set those up. Especially now that I see both Roland and William have Elder Signs to start the game. So George Barnaby, the lawyer, he'll start off on the library, and I'll point everybody out when we go over to the board. Fixed possessions, $7, and a special retainer. So we'll take a look at a retainer. On upkeep phase, gain $2, then roll a die. Discard this card on a 1. And that's what this die is for. It's a reminder that I've got to roll for something during the upkeep phase. Alright, so then we go through his common item, his unique item, spell, and skill. So first up for his common item, he has Another understudy script which we saw with Roland earlier. His unique item... I was going to say, I would have laughed if this was another... I probably would have laughed if this was another Elder Sign. Book of Dazan. Tome. Movement phase. Exhaust and spend 2 movement points to make a lore -1 check. If you pass, draw 1 spell, lose a sanity, and put a stamina token from the bank on Book of Dazan. If there are 2 stamina tokens on it, discard the Book of Dazan. If you fail, nothing happens. Then for his spell, we find... Flesh Ward. Casting modifier -2, sanity cost 1, magical spell. Any phase. Cast an exhaust to ignore all stamina loss being dealt to you from one source. Discard if the Ancient One awakens. And then for his skill we find... Bravery. Any phase, exhaust to reroll a horror check. We do need to look at his special abilities. First up we see Knowledge is Power. Any phase, when spending a clue token to add to a skill check, George may add +1 to the result of one of his rolled dice instead of rolling an extra die. Bailout. Any phase, George may spend $2 to prevent any investigator from being arrested, including himself. So he deals in bribes. Good to know. He's a crooked lawyer then. Anyway, his personal story. Well, Maria, I tracked them down, so it looks like this is it. I'll either see you soon, or maybe not at all. Whether I see you or not, take care, my love. George checked his weapons one last time, then moved forward, eyes fixed firmly on his targets. What weapons? We'll have to see if we can get him some, though. Maria. Pass. If George claims a cultist as a monster trophy, place My Sweet Maria in play. Fail if he's knocked unconscious or driven insane, place I'm Sorry Maria in play. The only way he's claiming a cultist as a monster trophy against Yig is by a miracle. But let's see what relationship George and William have. So George and William are Mystic Knights. Anytime either you or your partner passes a spell check with 2 or more successes, the casting investigator may exhaust this card. If he does so, you and your partner each gain 1 sanity. So we've got 2 investigators who are middling at best when it comes to spells as Mystic Knights. I'm not really too happy with that, but there's not a lot of help for that at this point. So that is it for George. Let's move over to our last investigator. Our last investigator today is Joe Diamond, the Private Eye. 4 sanity, 6 stamina. So the only one who's strong in sanity today is George. We've got his fixed possessions of $8, 3 clue tokens, and 1 common item, 45 automatic. 1 hand slot, +4 to combat checks, and it's a physical weapon like William's carbine rifle is. I knew I had another physical weapon here. So he's got 2 common items and a skill as random possessions. We'll take a look at his special ability so I don't forget. Hunches. Any phase, Joel rolls 1 extra bonus die when he spends a clue token to add to a roll. And as we see, looking at Joe's stats, I think he is probably going to be our designated gate closer in the game once we get past the 2 Elder Signs. Actually, I might do better saving those for really tough gates. But anywho, let's take a look at his random possessions. First up for his common items. We find a makeup kit. +1 to will checks, but not horror checks. Any phase, discard makeup kit to avoid being arrested. Wow, who could imagine a gritty Private Eye wearing makeup? Then his second common item is a rifle, 2-handed weapon, +5 to combat checks. Definitely got firepower, so I could probably pass the 45 off to somebody. Let's look at his skill. We find... Credit rating. Any phase, exhaust instead of spending $2. So it's like he's got $10, basically, which is going to be very handy. Then for his personal story, it's not the statue itself, Mr. Diamond. It's what's inside that's important. Carl Sanford sat behind his dark oak desk, looking coolly at Joe. I'll get it back, spat Joe. And those goons that took it, I'll add them on as a bonus. That would be just fine with us. Sanford narrowed his eyes. We here at the lodge are anxious to meet these thieves. I wouldn't be, being on the other end of that conversation. Hard-boiled. If Joe is at the Silver Twilight Lodge during the upkeep phase, he may spend 5 toughness worth of monster trophies and 1 unique item to finish the job in play. If Joe discards a unique item, place no dice in play. So we kind of don't want to be discarding unique items. So that sounds like he can't go to the curiosity shop then. Then we've got 2 relationships to reveal for Joe. So we've got his relationship. I'll put the sliders back on so I don't forget that I've got to readjust those for the start of the game. Like I said, we'll set those up during the first upkeep phase. So Joe's relationship with George. First he finds, I'll vouch for my friend. After the initial setup, anytime you or your partner gains a bank loan, retainer, Silver Twilight Lodge membership, basically a membership of any kind, the other may choose to take a card of the same type if he doesn't already have one. And then Joe's relationship with Roland. Courageous Inspirations. Either you or your partner may exhaust this card before making a horror check to gain +1 to the check. Alright, so that's all the investigators set up. Now let's move over to the board. Just to point out where everybody is, we've got Roland up here at Arkham Asylum. William is down here at South Church. George is... Where is George? George, is at the library. And Joe is over here at the police station. So we've actually got we've actually got coverage. So both of our elder signs are on opposite sides of the board. Now we can go ahead and get our first Mythos card out. And the only thing we can't start the game with is a rumor. Which that's a rumor, so we'll put that to the side. Okay, we got a headline. We can work with this. So I'll shuffle the rumor back in. We'll pretend that we didn't see it. Okay, we'll give that a cut. All right, now we go to work. So, gate at the science building will shortcut the clue to the witch house. Let's see, so now we need a gate for that. Oh, that's the monster bag, which I'll need that in a second, but first I need the gate. Try to bring it out curbside down. We're starting off with a normal gate. Plateau of Lang, -1 diamond gate. So that goes to the science building. Now we need a monster to go with it. All right, so we'll grab this one. And we will find, oh delightful, a werewolf. Looks like a -3 on the evade check. It's a moon monster. Physical immunity and elusive. Delightful. So physical immunity means if you're using physical weapons, you don't get anything out of your stats for that. Elusive means you have to pass an evade check to be able to fight it. Werewolf moves as a fast monster. If it enters an area containing any investigators, each investigator in that area loses 2 stamina. Oh, delightful. -1 on the horror check or you lose 1 sanity. -3 on the combat check or you lose 2 stamina. You need 2 health. Got 2 toughness. And so that goes there. We got our first Doom token on Yig. Alright, we moved the clue to the witch house. Coming back here. Hexagon moves on white, slash, triangle, and star moves on diamond, which the werewolf is a moon. Bizarre dreams plague citizens. all Gugs and Nightgaunts in Arkham are returned to the cup. If at least one monster returns to the cup, raise the terror level by 1. Except no monsters are returning to the cup. So we already have 1 doom on Yig. That gate is actually somewhat accessible if we want to send George into it right away, but time is most certainly of the essence. And there are definitely a lot tougher gates that we could get to, so actually we could probably send... Okay, William can't get there. I don't think Roland can either. Actually, 1, 2, 3... Roland might be able to get there if I want to send an Elder Sign into that gate right away, but I'm not sure I want to. So I guess the question is, how do I think I'm winning this game? Do I think I'm winning this game through seals, or... Well, I definitely want to get these 2 clues at the witch house before those get snatched up by a gate. Okay, I think I pretty much know what we're doing at this point. We'll probably send Joe after those clues, but let's go into our first upkeep phase, and we'll start off with Roland. I can make a case right now for either Roland or Joe going down to the witch house and grabbing those 2 clues. Actually, the case against Roland is, as I look at the board, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, he actually can't get down there, whereas Joe, with a speed of 1, 2, 3, 4, can. And I don't want to let those 2 clues at the witch house get gobbled up by a gate. So I think we're going to send Joe after... So we'll probably send Joe after those clues. As for Roland, I do want to send him clue hunting, so I'll probably have him go up to Independence Square. So, yeah, he'll need a speed of 2 to get up there, which I can give him a speed sneak of 2, 3. We'll put everything else middle of the road for now. 3, 3 on Fight Will, and 3, 2 on Lore Luck. That's it for Joe. Now let's move over to William. On upkeep phase, George gets $2 because of his retainer, and because this is the first turn he has it, he doesn't have to roll for it. So he's up to $9 already. I think, in all likelihood, we're probably winning this game via gate closing. So that's a -1 gate on the Plateau of Lang, and that's a -1 gate at the Plateau of Lang, and the werewolf is elusive. So I'm wondering if there's an argument to biting the bullet and sending George in, or if I... Yeah, I think if I'm winning this game, I'm probably doing it quickly with gate closures, closing all the gates and not having any on the board, and having enough trophies. That's probably the way I'm winning this game. So the question is, do I bite the bullet and send Joe or George in, and maybe have him come over, grab the clues? Yeah, that might actually be a better plan, actually, because now that I'm looking at it, I can get Joe to the science building, get him into that gate. Because he's got a speed of 1, 2, 3, 4. I need 5 speed to get down there, and Joe can get down there. So yeah, I think our better plan is to probably send George over to the witch house to get those clues. So to do that, he will need a speed of 3, which I can give him 3, 2 on speed sneak. And I'll put everything else middle of the road for the time being. 2, 2 on Fight Will, and 3, 3 on Lore Luck. That will do it for George. Now let's move over to Joe. I just realized I never figured out what William was doing with his stat sliders. I might not even have done his upkeep, actually. No, I think I did his upkeep. I just didn't set his sliders. So once I get done with Joe, I'll go back up and set William's sliders and figure out what he's doing. So Joe is going into the science building to go into the Plateau of Lang. So for that, he will need a speed of 5 to get up there. He won't have to fight the werewolf. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. Actually, either way I want to send him. 2, 3, actually 1, 2, 3, yeah, either way I want to send him Yeah, so you need a speed of 5. I'll put everything else middle of the road. 3-2 on Fight Will, and I want to go 1-2 on Lore Luck. I want to have some lore, but luck tends to be tested in the other worlds, so that will do it for Joe. So we need to move back up to William and actually set his sliders. I think William is just going to probably gather up some clues this round, so we'll send him over to the Historical Society to grab the clue there first. So to do that, he'll need a speed of at least 2. We can do that. Fight Will, we'll put it 3-4. And then Lore Luck will go 2-3 with that. So William's sliders are all set. Now we're finally done with the upkeep phase. Let's move back over to the board. We'll probably stay in an up top shot just so we can show everybody in one shot. I lied. We're going to do each investigator individually as normal. So Roland will move 1 to Downtown Streets, 2 to Independence Square, and grab the clue. That will do it for Roland's turn. Now let's move over to William. The only differences between Roland and William's turns are the locations involved. Well, the only difference really between Roland and William's turns is the locations involved. So 1 to Southside Streets, 2 to the Historical Society, and he'll grab the clue as well, which will bring William up to, technically it's 1 clue, but because of his special ability because of Secrets of the Dead, he's actually up to 4 clues right now. So that will do it for William. Let's move over to George. We can get both George and Joe and their destinations in shot. So George will move 1 to Miskatonic University Street, 2 to French Hill Streets, 3 to the Witch House, and grab these 2 clues, which will bring him up to 2. Then Joe's got a long way to go, so he'll move 1 to Easttown Streets, 2 to Rivertown Streets, 3 to French Hill Streets, 4 to Miskatonic University Streets, and 5 into the Science Building. He won't have to fight the werewolf because it's an elusive monster. He'd have to pass an evade check if he wants to fight it, and that's a -3 modifier. Joe only has a 2 sneak, so he's not passing an evade check on that. But that will do it for the movement phase. Now we go into the Arkham Encounter phase, and let's go say hello first to Roland. Roland in Independence Square's downtown district, so we need the white deck for that. We'll give this a shuffle. And a cut. And we'll try not to jar the light, but we'll see what happens on this encounter. So up at Independence Square. A gate and a monster appear. I actually don't completely mind this. So we'll put a Doom up on Yig because we do have a gate coming out. I'll do that first so I don't forget. Alright, that's another normal gate. So Roland is going to another dimension at +0 gate. Then we need a monster for that. We get, oh boy. We get a Star Vampire. I believe purple monsters are aquatic. I don't think it's listed on this quick reference sheet. I'll have to look that up later. But Star Vampires, purple monster of some kind. I know it's not flying. I know that. I think it's aquatic, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, yikes. Physical resistance. -3 on both the horror and combat checks, or you lose 3 sanity and stamina respectively. 3 toughness to kill it. Roland gets pulled to another dimension, and he's delayed. So I'll get a... we'll put a Doom token on him just to remind myself that he's delayed. So yeah, that was a thing that happened. But that is it for Roland's turn. We're not playing with Lurker at the Threshold this time, so we don't have any Reckonings, even though we've been... I've almost always played this with Lurker of the Threshold, so I wanted to mix it up a little bit. But that will do it for Roland. Now let's move down to William. William in Southside Streets needs the brown deck. Well, the dark brown deck, I should say. Give this a quick shuffle as well. And a cut. And we'll see what happens with that card. Historical Society. A monster appears and attacks as you approach the front door. Oh, delightful. Alright, so we get a monster. Let's see, what's attacking poor William? William is getting attacked. Oh, joy. By an elder thing. -2 to sneak past, and he's got 2 sneak, so we'd have to spend a clue for a die, but I don't think that's worthwhile. It's a diamond monster. -3 on the horror check, lose 2 sanity, +0 on the combat check, lose a health, 2 toughness to kill, and when you fail a combat check against an elder thing, you must discard one of your weapons or spells, your choice if able. Delightful. So, William starts off with a will -3 check, so he's got a grand total of 1 die. Where's my cup? Here you are. Alright, a 6 is a success. We'll use the carbine rifle, so 3 + 5 is 8. And we need 2 successes. So 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll see if we can take this thing out. And remember, we have grapple, so we're making a fight check right now. Actually, a combat check is a fight check. So, yeah, I can use grapple on this. Which I don't need because I rolled it naturally, which means the Elder Thing is now an additional trophy for William, and he's got 5 clues. He's basically got 5 clues as well, so we could send him into a gate as well. We'll get the dice tower out of... Actually, we won't go too far with the dice tower, because if I adjust slightly other way... Yep. Adjusting slightly, it's right on the foot, but I can get George in shot as well. He is down at the witch house, which will take the blue deck. So blue deck for George. And there's our card for that. So George will have his encounter in a second. He will find Witch House. You wake up suddenly after terrible dreams, unsure of how long you have been here, lose 1 sanity, and you're delayed. Joy. So George will take a sanity, and once again I'm using the Doom token to mark that he's delayed. So sanity goes on George. He's got a lot of sanity to spare, thankfully, but he is delayed. So that will do it for George. Now let's move up to Joe. Blink, and you missed Joe's Arkham Encounter phase. He's moving to the Plateau of Lang. That will do it for the Arkham Encounter phase. Now we're going to have our Otherworld Encounter phase. Let's go say hello first to Roland. As you can see by the colors up here, we can take the first one off the top. So Roland needs any color he will find. Other. Your mind is flooded with knowledge. Make a lore -2 check. If you pass, draw a spell but lose a sanity. Roland's lore is 3, so he gets a single solitary die at this. Let's see if he gets lucky on this one. He does not, and I'm not going to bother spending clues on this. So that will do it for Roland. Now let's move over to Joe in the Plateau of Lang. Joe has to be a bit pickier. He needs a red or a green off the Otherworld deck. Red and oh no, we go to Plateau of Lang. Never mind. A vast stirring rumbles through the plateau. Pass a sneak +0 check. Sneak for Joe is 2. That is... Do I want to fail that out, or... Rolls 1 extra bonus die when he spends a clue. I think we'll spend a clue for a reroll. Which, because of hunches, gives him a bonus die. Oh no, when he spends... Hold on. Rolls 1 extra bonus die when he spends a clue token to add to a roll. So... I don't think he gets that when he rerolls, so we will roll one of these. I don't think he gets that on a reroll. I was just reading through that again. Alright, that's a fail, now that I know how hunches works. Or roll a die and lose that much stamina. How about a low roll, please, Joe? We don't want to get you lost in time and space right off the bat. Two stamina. Not great, but believe me, I've seen a lot worse happen. So Joe has 2 damage on him now. Then that will do it for the Otherworld encounter phase. So let's move back up top for the Mythos phase. One off the top for the Mythos phase. Okay, so we got another gate at the Unvisited Isle. The clue will try to move to the Science Building, except there's a gate there, so it'll just be lost. We'll put a third Doom out on Yig's track. Our first lurker gate of the game, and this gives us... Good thing we had nobody on the Unvisited... Oh, I moved the... Okay, so the gate's at the gate is at the Unvisited Isle. I took the clue from the Unnameable, but either way. Good thing we had nobody at the Unvisited Isle, because this is Relay as a -3 gate, plus gate. But the bigger alarming thing here is if there was anybody at the Unvisited Isle, we would just get them devoured. The gate would devour them. So Relay goes there. Then we draw a monster. And we have... Oh, delightful. Another special monster. At least it's a diamond monster, though. Hunting Horror. -3 to try to sneak past. Magical Resistance. When it moves, Hunting Horror moves toward the nearest investigator in a straight area or unstable location. The unstable locations are the locations with red diamonds on them. -1 on the horror check or lose 3 sanity. -2 on the combat check or lose 4 stamina. 2 toughness to kill it. Delightful. Then the clue got swallowed up. Plus monsters move on white. moon moves on black. So the werewolf will move as a fast monster, as you remember. So moving on black. 1, 2, so it'll end up in the uptown streets. Curfew enforced. Environment urban. Any investigator who ends his movement in the streets must pass a will +0 check or be arrested and taken to the police station. Fun times. Good talk, Coach. All right, so that will move into a new round. William will become our first player, and we'll move into the upkeep phase. On upkeep phase, the rifle refreshes for William. What do I want him to do this round? Well, the Elder Sign would be well-tuned to getting him into that relay gate. He's not going to have enough. It's going to take him 3 turns to get there? Gross. And he's only got a speed. Only maxes out at 3 speed. So 1, 2, 3. To have to pass a will check in the Rivertown streets. Well, I could move him to the Silver Twilight Lodge just so I can duck the will check. That would get him another clue. And George is delayed anyway, so he's not moving anywhere. So yeah, I think we'll go with that. So William will move his speed sneak up to 3-1. So I can go, like I said, so I can go get the clue in the Silver Twilight Lodge. That will do it for William. Let's move over to George. George's upkeep phase is going to be fairly uneventful. He's going to get $2 for his retainer, then he's going to roll for it. He loses it on a 1. That's a 5, so I'll clear there. We'll leave his stats as is. All he's doing is basically just waking up from being delayed. So that will do it for George. Now let's move over to Joe. Joe's upkeep phase is going to be similarly short. We're going to leave everything as is. This way I can move his, when it's time to come out next turn, I can bring him up to 5 fight, since I'm going to use his fight to try to close the gate. That will do it for Joe. Let's move over to Roland. Despite being in a much different location from George, Roland's sliders are going to stay put for the same reason George's are. Roland is delayed in another dimension. So, looking at the upkeep phase, he's got 3 clue tokens and $3, so neither of his upkeep abilities kick in. That will do, kicks in, I think is the grammar there. But, more importantly, that will do it for Roland, that will do it for the upkeep phase. Let's move back over to the board and get into William's upkeep phase. Or we'll get into the movement phase, and we'll start with William. William will lead us off in the movement phase, which is going to be a very uneventful movement phase, by moving 1 to the South Side streets, 2 to the French Hill streets, 3 to the Silver Twilight Lodge, where he'll gobble up this clue. Then George will wakey from his nightmares. And that's it for his turn. Let's move down to Joe. There's a definite theme with movement phases this round. Blink, and you miss them. That will do it for Joe's movement phase. Now let's move over to Roland. Roland wakes up as well. Very uneventful movement phase for everybody, but let's go into the Arkham Encounter phase, and we'll go up first to William. William and Joe will both need the blue deck. William is up first, though. There's text on the Silver Twilight Lodge. Inner Sanctum. If you have a Silver Twilight Lodge membership, then you may look at the Inner Sanctum entry when having encounters here. Except for the part where the only way William is joining the Silver Twilight Lodge is probably in our dreams. But we'll see what happens here. So a cut, and our encounter card for William. Carl Sanford has taken an interest in your possessions. I don't know why this is not wanting to focus today. If you have a unique item, you may sell it for its list price. He does. If you do not sell it, the lodge's henchmen will try to take it by force. I think we can actually sell the Crystal of the Elder things for $4. The only way I'm giving up the Elder sign is in their delusions. So that will go there. William will get $4, going up to $8. And then that was a very short encounter for William. So we'll give this another quick shuffle for George. And to cut, and let's see what George is doing at the witch house. You find a terrible collection of human remains within the walls. Pass a will -1 check. George is at 2. -1 is a single die. Delightful. That's a 4. We'll fail that. Or lose 2 sanity. Not great, but we've had worse happen. So we'll grab a 3 out since that's what George is going up to. By total coincidence, the order of encounters this turn will work out. We're going to blow through Joe and Roland in the Arkham Encounter phase because they will be taking center stage in the Otherworld Encounter phase coming up now. Red or green for Joe is what we're looking for here. Green and Plateau of Ling. You wander the frozen wastes. No encounter. Hey, look at that. That was a nice, easy one. So now let's move over to Roland. We can take any color for Roland, and I'd love another uneventful one off the top. Blue and other. Pass a fight -1 check. His fight is 3 -1 is 2. Pass with flying colors. To hang on to your prize despite the wind, draw 1 spell. Which isn't great for Roland, but a spell is something we can probably pass off somewhere else. Let's see what we get first. We find Revelation of Script. Casting modifier -1, sanity cost 0. Upkeep, cast and exhaust this card to gain 1 clue token for each unique or exhibit item you gain until the end of the turn. Probably not that useful. There's a lot more useful spells I could have found, but that will do it for Roland. That will do it for the Otherworld Encounter phase. Let's move back up top for the Mythos phase. I'm just going to put the French Hill deck back in the holder, and we need another Mythos card off the top. Okay, Independence Square already has a gate, so that'll be a Monster Surge. Not something I wanted to see here. So, starting off at Independence Square, we get Serpent People, fitting with Yig. -2 to engage in combat. I can tell that because it's green, which means I'm pretty sure it's going to have elusive on the back when I flip this over. Moon Monster. Magical resistance and elusive. While Serpent People is a monster trophy, it may be spent after failing a combat check to add 3 bonus dice to the roll. -1 on the horror check or lose 2 sanity. -2 on the combat check or lose 4 health. 1 toughness to kill it. Going up to the Unvisited Isle. We find a fire vampire, which is a flying monster. +0 to sneak past, a star. Ambush, which means you're stuck in combat until you defeat it. Physical immunity. 1,000 tiny fires the size of match flames swept from the night sky. The old man was suddenly radiant with light. No horror check, -2 on the combat check or lose 2 health, 1 toughness to kill it, so that goes there. Then over to the science building we will find a High Priest, -2 to sneak past, it's a plus monster. Magical immunity, so anything that says magical on it, we get no dice from that, similar to physical. We will not cease our struggle, intoned the robed figure, until we have built Carcosa upon this land of ruined reason. +1 in the horror check or lose 1 sanity, -2 on the combat check or lose 2 stamina, 2 toughness to kill. And then going over to Independence Square once again, that's basically going to be a total nightmare when Roland comes out. We find a deep one. +0 to sneak past, it's a plus monster. And yet I saw them in a limitless stream, flopping, hopping, croaking, bleeding, surging inhumanly through the spectral moonlight in a grotesque, malignant, saraband of fantastic nightmare. -2 on the horror check or lose 2 sanity, -1 on the combat check or lose 2 health, 2 toughness to kill it. So that space is an ungodly mess. Clue appears at the unnameable. So now we have a new priority space to go get those clues from. Or to go get clues. Hexagon moves on white, slash, triangle, and star moves on black. Your moon plus star will move out to the merchant district, see nobody here, and then move to the sky. Coming over here, the star vampire will move out to downtown streets, so that's a little less of a mess. And I think we're all clear there. Strange Terrors Cease. Headline. All Chthonians and Doles in Arkham are returned to the cup. If at least one monster returns to the cup, raise the terror level by 1, except none are. So that will do it for the round. George will be our first player as we move into a new upkeep phase. Upkeep phase, I'm starting to swap them out already. George gains $2. He's going to go up to 13 on his retainer, but then he's going to have to roll for it. A 2 means he barely keeps it, but he keeps it all the same. I think now I want to send George up to the general store to try to get him some firepower. So he's got a speed of 3 to get there. He's not going to be doing anything special this turn, so that will do it for George. Now let's move over to Joe. Joe is coming out of the Plateau of Leng, so that's going to be a fight check to try to close the gate. So we'll max his fight out at 5. Actually, okay, yeah, that was 2 of his focus, and I think we'll just leave everything else as is. So that will do it for Joe. Now let's move up to Roland. Neither of Roland's gain resources cards will kick in during the upkeep phase because he's above both required both thresholds for those. He is just moving to the second half of another dimension, so he's going to have another blink and you miss it turn in the other worlds. That will do it for Roland. Let's move over to William. William's going to go meet George in the general store, and then one of them is going into that relay gate. I may have William go digging as well for another weapon, and then I can potentially pass a weapon off to George next turn, just so he has some way to defend himself. But that will do it for William, and I think his sliders are good as is, yes. So that will do it for William, that will do it for the upkeep phase. Let's move over to the movement phase and go say hello first to George. Since they're both right here in shot and I don't want to have to come back, I'm going to do both George and William now. Nothing Joe or Roland is going to do is going to impact these two. So George is going to move 1 to the French Hill streets, 2 to the Rivertown streets, and now that I'm looking at it, no, I want to stick with my plan of getting Joe some firepower, so we'll move him into the general store. William has the same option in front of him, but I think we'll stick with his plan as well. And yeah, we'll take him to the general store as well, where he'll say hello to George. So that will do it for William and George. Once again, I'm doing this a little bit out of order just to make the shots a little bit easier. But nothing Joe or Roland is going to do will impact William. So, with that ramble aside, let's move down to George. Or, not George, Joe. I'm always giving Catweasel a hard time about the Explore markers, so I'm going to put one on the Investigator so I don't forget when they're coming out. But Joe is moving out to the Science Building, coming out of the Plateau of Lang. So that will do it for Joe. Let's move over to Roland. Roland is very short. He's moving over to the second half of another dimension. That will do it for Roland. That will do it for the movement phase. Arkham Encounter phase next, and let's go say hello to George. Before we get into George's Arkham Encounter phase, first I'm going to do Williams as well, since once again, I'm right here, and nothing Roland or Joe is doing is going to impact this. But I also have a house rule that I use around these store encounters, where if I've got multiple investigators in the same store space, then they can pool money to pick up anything that they might need. So, say George was short of money, which he's not likely to be, but if he were, I could pool from William and buy the item that way. More likely the reverse is going to be true, but we both George and William actually have a pretty good supply of money right now at this point of the game. George has $13, so he basically has run of the store. William has $8. So I'm not particularly worried about money, but I did want to point out that that is a house rule that I use. So first up, George is going shopping. So the text on the location reads, instead of having an encounter here, you may draw 3 common items and purchase one of them for list price. Discard the rest. So first item George has to pick from is an axe. Physical weapon +2 to combat checks, +3 instead if your other hand is empty. It's not great, but it's a weapon. Next up, lantern, +1 to luck checks. Both of those are $3, by the way. And mineralogy report. Ugh. I hate these tasks. So the way a task works is you have to pass an upkeep in each phase, in each place. So you have to go to the woods first, then the Black Cave, and finally the Science Building. The payoff is you get to draw an ally, gain a clue token, and $4. I don't like tasks to begin with, and George with a speed of 3 is probably going to be a while completing that. Plus, with an ancient one that's got 10 doom, we really don't have time for that. So I think it's going to be the axe for $3. So George will gain that because I was looking for a weapon anyway. The lantern and the mineralogy report will both go to the bottom of the common deck. And then the axe will move over to George. And then, like I said, since I'm right here, I'm going to do Williams. Williams is going to go shopping as well. I'll do his Arkham encounter, mostly so I don't have to come back for the shop. So Williams' first item is a knife, which is a one-handed weapon for $2, plus 1 to combat checks. That would give him a full complement of weapons, at least for physical. Next up is another carbine rifle, which I might grab that. And a time bomb, which this... Ooh, actually I used this to great effect in one of my last playthroughs. Movement. You may place this card on your current Arkham location or street area with up to 3 clue tokens from the bank on it. Upkeep. If this card is on a location or street area, discard 1 clue token from it. If there are no clue tokens left to discard, return all monsters in the location area from the cup. Reduce all investigators in the location or area to 0 stamina, and discard this card for $3. I think Williams is going to grab another carbine rifle. I can exhaust that to gain +5 on the check. So that will fill him out on physical weapons. Now maybe we need to look at magical weapons, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself there. So that's it for William. Let's move up to Joe up at the science building. The Plateau of Lang is a -1 gate. I'm so used to that being effectively -2 because of the lurker, but it's only a -1 this time. So Joe has a fight of 5. -1 means he's going to have 4 dice to try to close this gate. Which he succeeds at. There's a 5 hidden back there. So the Plateau of Lang is closed. I don't have enough clues to seal it. Alright, diamond monsters come off the board, which means the hunting horror's off the board. And I think that's it. So that will go back into the bag. Alright, that will do it for Joe's Arkham encounter phase. Roland is not in Arkham, but we are going to him next for the Otherworld encounter phase. We can take the first one off the top here, and as long as nothing goes haywire, I might burn Roland's Elder Sign to get Independence Square sealed. Even though I don't think I'm winning this game by seals. So let's see what we've got off the top. Alright, red and other. Pass a luck -1 check, which Roland gets a single die at this, so we'll see how this goes. A 3, which will fail, but I saw the reward. So you avoid good stuff. Peter's already at full health and sanity anyway, so I'm not too bothered about that, but that will do it for Roland. That will do it for the Otherworld encounter phase. Now let's move back up top for the Mythos phase. Mythos card coming out. Oh joy. We have a gate at the Unvisited Isle, except that's another monster surge. Our monster limit is 7. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to be... Right, wait, let me count that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to draw 1 for the... We're going to draw 1 to go to the Unvisited Isle, and then the other 3 are going to the outskirts. We'll go through the one that's going to the Unvisited Isle. We have a crawling one. Oh, wonderful. -1 to try to sneak past its a circle monster. Physical resistance. Before making a combat check against crawling one, roll a die. X is equal to the result of the die roll. -3 on the horror check or lose 3 sanity. minus X, which I just explained, or 2, lose 2 stamina, 1 toughness to kill it. So that's going to the Unvisited Isle. And then we'll draw 3 more monsters. I won't go through these. But these 3 monsters, I see some pretty dangerous ones too, will be going to the outskirts. So they will affect the terror limit. Okay, and we have activity at the Miskatonic University streets. Oh, delightful. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself there. I'll put that out. Slash, triangle, and star moves on white, hexagon on black. So star moves on white. The star vampire is moving to the East Town streets. The fire vampire is going to fly around the streets, see nobody out there, and then move back to the sky. I don't think anything else is moving, though. No. Alright, so we get to take a look at this. The Terrible Experiment. Rumor. When this card enters play, place 5 monsters from the cup on it. Any player may choose to fight 1 or more of these monsters while in the Miskatonic University streets during the Arkham Encounter phase. If defeated, they are claimed as monster trophies. These monsters do not move, are not considered to be on the board, and don't count against the monster limit. Ongoing effect. Place a monster on this card at the end of every Mythos phase, beginning the turn after it entered play. Pass. If there are no monsters on this card, return it to the box. Each player draws a skill. Yikes. Fail. If there are 8 monsters on this card, return it to the box. Raise the terror level to 10 and place the monsters that were on it into play in the Miskatonic University streets. Oh joy. That probably can't be allowed to go off, so we get 5 monsters on here. I'll go through the monsters as we pull them off to fight them. I'm not going to go through them now, unless there's something particularly dangerous. I'll take a glance at them off camera to see if there's anything particularly dangerous, or when they actually move onto the board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll do it that way. I see some... oh, that one's going to be a problem. Yikes. I think I'm going to stick with my plan of waiting until they come on the board, but there is definitely some very problematic monsters that are going on that card that's probably going to need to get dealt with pronto. But getting ahead of myself there, we're moving into a new round, and Joe will be our first player. Joe is going to need to fight the High Priest this turn. Fortunately, the immunity is magical, not physical, and he's got plenty of firepower for that. +1 or lose a sanity. I can probably... to will checks, but not horror checks. Okay, so... yeah, he does need 2 toughness of monster trophies for his personal story, but he also needs a unique item. I think we'll... I want to make sure I obliterate that thing, that High Priest. So I'm going to leave his sliders as is. I can deal with a 1 sanity loss. So that will do it for Joe. Let's go up to Roland. Roland is coming out of another dimension to Independence Square, and I think we are going to use the Elder Sign to seal that. So his sliders are going to stay as is, which will make for a very uneventful upkeep for Roland, since his intuitive and expense account do not kick in. That will do it for Roland. Let's move over to William. Part of the reason I wanted to get William and George together was I need to get somebody into Relay. We need to get that Relay gate sealed pronto. So the only question was who was going to do it. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the Elder Sign over to George, and then I'm going to send William after the Terrible Experiment. He's going to need to be able to survive that will check, though, as I was looking at the monsters again, there were a couple of tough monsters on there that I don't want to get out onto the board. So he's also got to survive the will check to avoid being arrested. So I think we're going to leave his sliders... I think we're going to leave them as is. So a four dice should be enough, cross my fingers, to survive the will check on being arrested. But that will do it for... And plus we've got extra money from George that we can pay anyway if that goes sideways, which I prefer not to, but backup plans have to be a thing in this universe. That will do it for William, though. Now let's move down to George. George is going to take the Elder Sign from William and head... Actually, William... Yeah, he's going to take the Elder Sign from William, and then he's going to... wait a minute. I just realized I've got a small problem there because I've got to deal with this crawling one. Speed is 3. Actually, no. We might be able to get past that. We'll be rolling a single die, and a 4 will work because I'll be able to spend a die for the... I'll be able to spend a clue to give him +1 to the skill. But we can't forget about the retainer. $2. And if I was a little bit less of a derp, I would have had the dice tower and shot already. But better late than never, right? Roll for this. That's a 5, so we keep his retainer. That will do it for George. That will do it for the upkeep phase. Movement phase next, and let's go say hello first to Joe, who's got to work out on something. Once again, I'm doing things slightly out of order, but nothing Roland does is going to interfere with any of this. So, Joe's got to start off by fighting this High Priest. Magical immunity is not going to be relevant for us. However, we start with the horror check. He's got a single solitary die on this, because his will right now is 0. Which he passes, so that works. And his fight is 5, plus 5 from the rifle is 10, minus 2 is 8 dice, and we need 2 successes. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oops, I had 1 fall out, and I do not like that result in the slightest. Yikes. Yeah, I think he will just fail that out, take 2 stamina, and roll again. That was terrible. There's not even a point to re-rolling here, because I didn't get any successes out of that. So the horror check's already considered done at this point, which means we won't have to do that again, but we definitely need to get a better result on this second combat check. That is more like it. So Joe defeats the High Priest, ends up with a 2 toughness worth of monster trophies. That is it for Joe. So we'll come back to Roland, but pretend we've already done Roland at this point. Like I said, nothing he does is going to impact anything in Arkham right now. So we'll move down to George. Actually, no, I take that back. William's next in the sequence, so he'll give the Elder Sign over to George. We'll keep the carbine rifles. William will move 1 to Rivertown Streets, 2 to Merchant District Streets, 3 to Miskatonic University Streets. I think he had a speed of 3. Now he's got to pass a will +0 check, or George is going to spend $2 to keep him from being arrested as I drop dice. Okay, no money needed from George there. Then speaking of George, he will move 1 to the Rivertown Streets, 2 to Merchant District Streets, 3 to the Unvisited Isle, where he's going to try to sneak past the crawling one. He's got a single solitary die for this. But remember, because of his special ability, Knowledge is Power, 4 and up will work for him. That's a 5, so we roll it naturally. That works too. So George has snuck past the crawling one, which means he'll be heading into relay with an elder sign. That will do it for George. Now let's move over to Roland. No bonus points for guessing what the explored marker is doing on Roland. He is moving back to Independence Square. Very uneventful phase in the movement for Roland. So now we're into the Arkham Encounter phase, and let's go say hello first to Joe. I have a decision to make with Joe because there's text on his location that says, instead of having an encounter here, you may spend 5 toughness worth of monster trophies or a gate trophy to gain 2 clues. I could spend the Plateau of Length gate trophy that he just picked up last turn to gain 2 clues, but in order to win by having all the gates closed on the board, I also need to have gate trophies equal to the number of investigators. Given that's how I think I'm going to win this game, if I am, I'm going to have an encounter because I need to keep the gate trophy. So that'll bring out the yellow deck. We'll give that a shuffle. And a cut. And that will be our encounter. I'll put that back in here. So Joe will find. He's at the science building. A graduate student explains that this stable gateway is a stable gateway to another world. Theoretically. There are some kinks to work out still. If you go through the gate, make a luck +0 check. If you pass, move to the other world of your choice. If you fail, move to the woods and immediately have an encounter there. So we'd be making a luck check to potentially move to the other world of our choice. So I guess I could make a calculated gamble here. What I'm gambling on is probably a dangerous play, but if this works, I could probably just win the game. Because the gamble I would be going on here is sending Joe to relay and then hoping another relay gate comes out. You know what? And he's actually got a decent amount of dice at it. That's also going to require not only a relay gate to come out, but at least one of the turns while we're in another world, no other gates popping out or hitting Independence Square, which is a pretty tough ask. But let's gamble on it. So we'll move. So we'll roll the dice and see if we can get past a luck check. This is a luck +0. So 2 dice. Which we managed to pass. So the gamble here is that by moving Joe to relay, we'll be able to get a relay gate coming out. That will do it for Joe. Let's move over to Roland. It is very crowded in that mess, but Roland will spend his elder sign. Also take 1 health and 1 sanity, which will go on his investigator sheet. We'll seal the gate, which will give him that as a gate trophy. Square monsters come off the board, but I don't think we have any squares on the board. We have 1 on the card, but those don't count as being on the board yet, and that is mildly annoying, but no help for it at this point. So, gate trophy to Roland. Our first blue seal goes up to... Here's our blue seal, so that goes up to Independence Square. The explored marker can come off, and Roland still has a mess on his hands. But, yeah, there's really nothing we can do about... Well, we might be able to get past that deep one, but let's leave that question for next turn. That will do it for Roland. Let's move over to William. For the Elder Sign, I almost forgot, we do get to take a Doom token off the Doom track. So William is actually going to do some fighting with these monsters in the Miskatonic University streets. The Dimensional Shambler is the first one that needs to go, because it's a square monster. But if he fails a combat check against it, he's lost in time and space. That's why I want to get rid of that now. So -2 on the horror check, or he takes a sanity. His will right now is 4. -2 is 2. We'll reroll both of these 6s. I think I'd rather have the clues for the combat check, not that I think I'll need them. So he'll take the fail on that and take 1 sanity. Then he'll exhaust one of his rifles. -2, so 8 -2 is 6. 2, 5, 6. And we only need 1 success to take this thing out. That looks like 2 successes, so the Dimensional Shambler has been defeated, which brings William up to 5 monster trophies, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 toughness worth. Not quite enough to go get blessed at South Church yet, but something to consider in the future. Next monster we're going to take out. Let's see if we can deal with the Deep One Hybrid next. So -1 on the horror check, or we lose a sanity. Will is 4 -1 is 3 as I drop the cup on the table. Right, we fail that, so we'll lose another sanity. And then he will exhaust his other rifle. So that's another +5, 8. 8 dice. And we only need a single success here as well. So 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That can go there. Okay. We need a single success here. So William, ask and ye shall receive. That's gone. So we only have, so that's 9 toughness of monster trophies now. And we have 3 monsters left on there, but they're pretty dangerous. We may have to deal with that Servitor of the Outer Gods next, but that is a question for next turn. That will do it for William. Now let's move over to George. George is going to say hello to Joe in the Otherworld phase, or in Relay, and moving into the Otherworld encounter phase, so are we. Part 1 of our 3-step plan was a success. We got Joe to Relay. Part 2 is going to happen during the next Mythos phase, but before we get that far, Joe needs a red or a yellow card. So let's see what we find here. Red and Relay. Uh-oh. Hurricane winds smash you against the Cyclopean stones. Pass a fight -1 check. He is at 5 -1, I believe, is 4. There's a 6 in there. And avoid very bad stuff. So that will do it for George. Or not George, Joe. Now we're going to George, who also needs a red or yellow. Red and other. Passes speed -1 check. His speed right now is 3 -1 is 2. We'll take that 6. Now let's see what we can do with that. We'll spend a clue to pass that, because knowledge is power lets us let us add +1 to add to a skill check. So he may add +1 to the result of one of each of his rolled dice. So he's spending a clue to make that 4 or 5, which means he'll pass. To grab the carving before it falls, draw one spell. So George's spell is Shriveling. Sanity cost, or casting modifier -1, sanity cost 1. Magical spell. Any phase, cast and exhaust to get +6 to combat checks until the end of this combat. His lore is pretty good, isn't it? Yeah, he tops out at 4, so that's not terrible. That gives him something else other than the axe to fight with. So that will do it for Joe. That'll do it for the Otherworld encounter phase. Let's move back up top for the Mythos phase. In order to win this game in the next 2 turns, I need 2 things to happen in either order. One of the next Mythos cards needs to spawn a gate, and then I need to draw Relay out of the bag. There's a couple ways I can get to that. The other thing that needs to happen is the other card needs to not be a gate spawn, but I'm far from sure that's going to happen. So let's see what happens here. We find... Okay, we're hitting against the... Okay, this is actually a very big problem, and I'll explain why. So we have a gated independence square, except we have an elder sign there, so we have a seal there, so no gate. Clue appears at the unnameable, so that'll turn into 3 clues, which we're going to have somebody go grab. Slash, triangle, and star moves on white. Hexagon moves on diamond, or on black. So the fire vampire will fly around, see William out here, and actually move to say hello. So William's going to have to fight him in the movement phase, which is rather unfortunate. And the star vampire moves on white, so down to Rivertown streets. And these guys don't move. Alright. All investigators in Otherworld areas may immediately return to Arkham. I would mind that a little bit more. I would mind that a little bit less if we had one more gate trophy, but alas, we only have 3 right now. We're only going to have 3 once George seals the Otherworld, once George seals the Unvisited Isle. So, yeah, we're not going to be able to win the game with that, but we are into a new round, and Roland will start us off in the upkeep phase. Neither of Roland's intuitive nor expense account kick in during the upkeep phase, and he got exactly no reprieve on the monsters on his space. We may have to try to take out the deep one barehanded. He's not going to have great odds at that, I don't think. We might be better trying to sneak past it. Question is, where do we want to go if we do that? Moving him toward the Bank of Arkham wouldn't be a terrible idea to try to get him a bank loan. Yeah, I think that's probably what we're going to end up doing. And then maybe sending him after some firepower the next turn after that would be a good idea. But so he's going to need a speed sneak of... So I think 2-3 is where he's going to have to be on that. He'll need 2 speed to get to the Bank of Arkham, and 3 sneak gives him the best chance to get past the deep one. So we're all set there. That will do it for Roland. Let's move over to William. William's rifles will both refresh. He's got to fight the fire vampire, and it's got physical immunity, so he's going to be fighting with his base fight, which... There's not a horror check on that, so... Oh! I almost forgot about the rumor, so I do need to put a fresh monster on the Great Experiment. So we'll draw that out. We'll draw... Ugh, Dark Young. Gross. Okay. Alright, so as I mentioned, William's going to have to fight the fire vampire, but he's going to have to do that with his base fight, because he's not going to be able to get anything out of the rifles for that. And I think we'll leave his sliders. Do I want to bump his fight up? Let me look at what he's... I kind of want him to try to take out that... He's not going to have the sanity to survive Nightmarish from the Servitor of the Outer Gods. And that's probably the thing I'd want him to take out if he can. But... none of these are all pretty dangerous monsters. Let's see, the Dark Young is Nightmarish. Physical resistance. Oh, this is... okay, this is really bad. We've got a series of physical either immune or resistant monsters. We need to get some magic down there pronto. So Roland is probably going to be our best bet on that. I'm deciding if I want to have William try to take out the fire vampire. I think I might have to, just because it's going to keep flying around and causing us a lot of problems. So yeah, I think we're going to have William go ahead and try to take the fire vampire out. To do that, he's going to bump his fight Will up to 4-3. Can he get to Arkham Asylum next turn? Yes, he can. So I think we're going to have to do that with him. That will do it for William. Now let's move over to George. First things first, we'll give George his $2. Then I'll remember to bring the dice tower and a shot. So by the way, we are in round two. If you remember at the start of the game, I actually cut the Mythos deck down considerably because I want to have a somewhat manageable video, and I'm even still pushing it here. But we're rolling for his retainer, which we keep. George is sealing off the relay gate with the Elder Sign, which means we can probably get Joe moving this turn. So, with that, let's go ahead and move over to Joe. Joe's going to move over to the Unnameable and nom some clue. Actually, he's got to get past the Crawling one, which is also physically resistant. He only needs a speed of 2 to get to the Unnameable, so I think we'll bump his speed sneak all the way down to 3-4, just to give us the best chance of trying to sneak past the Crawling one. So assuming he gets past that, he's going to nom the clues over at the Unnameable. That will do it for Joe. That'll do it for the upkeep phase. Let's move into the movement phase and see what Roland is doing. I'm actually going to tip the camera up just slightly to make sure I get Roland's actual destination and shot. Adjust that. Bring the dice tower into shot as I'm busy dropping it. You can put it there, and we'll put that there. Okay. So Roland is going to try to sneak past the deep one. His sneak right now is 3. We don't have great odds trying to fight it barehanded, but we might be able to manage it. We do manage to sneak past it. Okay, so we can get the dice tower out of shot. 1 to downtown streets, 2 to the Bank of Arkham. So that plan's moving ahead. That will do it for... okay, we'll get explore markers up there as well, but I'm getting ahead of myself there. That will do it for Roland. Let's move over to William. Because William is technically ending his movement in the streets, he's going to have to roll for the curfew to see if he gets arrested. Well, actually translated to see if George has to pay $2 to keep him out. George does not have to pay because there's a 5 in there, so William avoids getting arrested. Then he's going to have to fight the fire vampire. So ambush, I believe, let me just double check that. Of course it's not here, but I'm pretty sure you're just stuck in, basically it's just a fight. It's either a fight to the death or you're stuck for at least 1 round of combat before you can try to evade. Let me just double check that real quick. Okay. See if I can find it in here. Once combat has begun, the investigator cannot flee. So yeah, we're stuck with a fight to the death. So, since it's physically immune, his fight is 4. Oh, yikes. Okay, this is really bad. So we actually need both of these to be 4 and up. Because we're grappling, thankfully. We just roll it naturally. That works too. So that's 10 toughness of monster trophies, which means William can now go to South Church and either get blessed or bless somebody else. That will move to the discard pile. That will do it for William. Let's move over to George. George and Joe both have Explore markers because they both came out of Relay. But I also completely forgot about how that works. So because they came out during the Mythos phase, they actually will have to deal with the crawling one. So let's see what kind of luck. That's physically resistant. Are we going to try to have... Who would be better off? I think we're going to have George try to fight it. So he's going to roll for his horror check. He's a will of 2. What's the horror check on this? -3. Yikes. So, oh, this is bad. Do I want to just spend a clue and give him a die? Yeah, I think we have to. Spend the clue just to give him a single die. Which we somehow pass. That works. Okay, so now we're getting ready to make the combat check, which means we've got to find out what this -X is. -5? Yikes. So, let's see, right now he's a 2. Plus 6 would be 8. 10 -5 is 5. Do I want to try to cast Shriveling into that mess, or do I just want to fail? Oh, I don't know if I can afford to fail out. I might have to, though. That costs him 2 stamina if he fails. Yeah, we might have... the Elder Sign's going to send him to the hospital, then. Yeah, I think we've got to try to... I think we've got to try to take this out. So, we're going to cast Shriveling, which is a -1 casting modifier. Sanity cost is 1, so he's up to... He's got 4 sanity on him right now. -1 on his lore is 3, so he's got 2 dice. Which he casts Shriveling, so that's a +6. And it's physically resistant, so 7 plus 2 is 9, -5 is 4. And we need 1 success to take it out. So, come on, George, let's have this. And we get it. Thankfully, that is a huge relief. So George takes the crawling one out after much more effort than probably humanly possible. And then, so George is staying there, which is fine anyway. Joe is going to lose his explored marker because he's going to move 1, 2 to the unnameable, and get these 3 clues. So 1, 2, 3, which means we could send Joe into a gate as well, potentially sealing it, but we've got some options on that front. So, we'll bring the dice tower... Where do I want to put the dice tower down? I think we'll put it down on top... Actually, I think we'll just leave it right here for Joe, because I think he's the only one that might need it this Arkham Encounter phase. Speaking of which, let's move into Roland, who is up at the Bank of Arkham. Dice Tower is not needed for Roland here because he will be taking... He'll be taking a bank loan. So once I put these back, I'll show you what's on the bank loan card. Gain $10 when you take this card. Upkeep, roll a die. On a 1 to 3, pay $1 or discard all of your items along with this card. You can't get another bank loan this game. Any phase, pay $10 to pay off your bank loan and discard this card. You may choose to take out a new bank loan later on during the game, which is a great thing to get with Roland, because we can use his expense account to make sure he always has money to pay off his bank loan. So the color die I want for that, I want a clear die for that. So that's similar to what I'm doing with George and his retainer. That's just a reminder die to help me remember that, hey, I got to roll for something during his upkeep phase. That will do it for George. Let's move over to William. As I was looking at the monsters, I think we're going to have William pass on an encounter this turn, so he's not going to have an encounter. That will do it for William. Let's move over to George. George has our other start of the game Elder Sign, so we'll spend 1 health and 1 sanity along with returning the Elder Sign to the box to go ahead and put another blue seal on the board. So that's the reason why the Mythos card that we got, or our second seal, that's why that strange power flux plaguing the city was such a big problem, because it brought us out before we could see if the 4th gate that we needed was going to come out. So we also got plus monsters off the board, which means the deep one comes off. And that is it. So the deep one goes back to the bag. I'll give that a quick shake up. A nice uneventful encounter phase for George. So that will do it for him. Now let's move back over. Actually, I can probably just reposition the camera slightly to get to Joe at the Unnameable, which will take the green deck. So right now we have no gates on the board, but because we don't have the requisite gate trophies, the game continues. Which is highly unfortunate, but no help for it at this point. All right, there's our card. So Joe will find. The house calls to you. If you follow its voice, it tells you which floorboards to pry up. You may draw 1 unique item or exhibit item, but you must also take the Tainted card if it's available. Let's take a look at Tainted, because Joe does need a unique item for his personal story. Actually, we're not going to do that. So, yeah, we're just going to bite the bullet on that one. But that will do it for Joe. That will do it for the Arkham Encounter phase. Nobody's in an other world. We'll move back up top for the Mythos phase. Mythos phase time. Let's see what we get from the deck this time. Okay. Alright, we've got a headline. So, Gate appears at the woods. The clue is going to be moving to the Historical Society, so I'll shortcut that now. We'll also put a doom up on Yig. Right, the gate. It's a normal gate this time, so we're going. It's the relay gate we would have needed to win the game last turn. That is very unfortunate, but let's see what monster we get for that gate. We find a ghoul, pretty easy to get past, -3 to sneak past. Ambush, +0 on the horror check, you lose 1 sanity. -1 on the combat check, lose 1 stamina, 1 toughness to kill it. And it's a hexagon monster, not a huge problem. We moved the clue already. Circle moves on white, square and diamond move on black, which I think we have none of those out right now. We've actually done 1, 2, 3, 4. We've actually done a pretty good job of getting the board somewhat under control. We can probably get past that werewolf if we want to send William into relay. But that's going to require the same... That's actually going to require a different gamble this time. Fortunately, we've got 2 fairly high-frequency gates covered by Elder Signs. So this time we're going to have to get lucky on that front. But I'm getting ahead of myself there. Because... Ooh, private security hired in Uptown. All monsters in the Uptown streets or locations are returned to the cup. Which I believe Uptown's red, so all of that goes right back. And William's way just became a lot clearer if we want to send him into the woods. So he's our first player, and now it's time to make that decision. I could very easily get William into relay now that the way just got cleared. The only thing I don't like about that idea is relay is a -3 gate, which means he'd be rolling 1 die, but he does have grapple. I think the plan I like better is sending Joe in there, because he'd be a fight of 5, which means he'd at least have 2 dice to roll at it. And if I'm not caring about seals, well, if I don't care about seals, either one of them have rerolls for days. And William buries his rerolls deep, his monster rerolls deep, so I think we are going to take a risk on that. Which means we're basically in the same situation we were before, but now we shouldn't have another card that brings us out to Arkham prematurely. Unless I were to find a spell, but nothing happening on that front. So yeah, I think we're going to gamble again on relay. That will do it for William. Now let's go see what George is doing. Bring the dice tower into shot. Shriveling refreshes. He gets $2, goes up to 16, but then he has to roll a die. Cup is over here. Bring the dice tower over just a touch, right there. That's a 4, so we keep it. It was deciding for a minute what it wanted to do there. So we have a couple of options with George. He's got $16. We could very easily send him and Roland shopping, but his sanity's also pretty hurting. So I think the better play, he's got 3 speed, so he can get to either place. I think the bigger priority right now is to get his sanity restored. So we're going to send him up to Arkham Asylum, where he's going to heal to full sanity. So I'll pull those out for now. That will do it for George. Now let's go say hello to Joe. Joe is going to join William in relay, and then we're going to plan on one of 2 things happening. Either we get no gates opening because of the... Either we get no gates opening, or we get 1 and we get the split relay gate. There's a split gate, but that's going to be a very dangerous one to pull out. So, yeah. I think we'll probably have a better chance of having no gates open up, but we'll see what happens there. For that, Joe's going to need a speed of 1, 2, 3, 4. And once again, I forgot about the rumor, so we'll put his speed up to 4 using one of his focus. And then we'll draw a new monster for the rumor. I am terrible at remembering that rumor. We find another fire vampire. That rumor is... that kind of changes the math a little bit. Because that rumor is going to go off while we're in relay if we send both Joe and William after it. My plan is to try to have both Roland and George ideally get some magical firepower so they can go work on that rumor, but I think we're gonna have to gamble on it. Because if we're going in of our own volition, we shouldn't be delayed. So I think we're gonna have to take a chance on that rumor potentially going off, but no help for that at this point. So that is Joe. Let's go say hello to Roland. Roland has his first turn with the bank loan, so no roll needed for that. If he's going to the curiosity shop, he's going to need a speed of 3, so we'll bump that up with his focus. We'll leave his other sliders as is. So that's it for the upkeep phase. Movement phase, and let's go say hello first to William. Once again, we'll do everything slightly out of order just make shot capturing easy, but nothing will be impacted by that. So William will move 1 to Uptown Streets, 2 to the Woods. We'll do Joe next, even though George is technically next. But again, no impact is going to be had there. So Joe will move 1 to the Merchant District Streets, 2 to Miskatonic University Streets, 3 to Uptown Streets, 4 to the Woods, and he'll say hello to William. As William and Joe wonder what they're about to do, we'll reposition the camera just slightly to get George and Roland and their destinations in shot. So George is going to move 1 to the Merchant District Streets, 2 to Downtown Streets, and 3 to Arkham Asylum. As for Roland, he's going to move 1 to Downtown Streets, 2 to Northside Streets, 3 to the Curiosity Shop. That will do it for Roland. That will do it for the movement phase. Arkham Encounter phase next, and let's go say hello first to Joe. Actually, technically we're going over to William first, but once again, say it with me, kids, we're going to do this out of order to make the shot a little bit easier because, again, there's no impact. So William and Joe are both going to relay. So we'll see them later in the Otherworld Encounter phase. That will do it for William and for Joe. Now let's pretend we're going to George second. No dice tower needed for either of these encounters. I'll get Roland's encounter ready. George is going to be spending $2 to heal back to full sanity because that's the encounter. I will go ahead and read the text on the location once I get the sanity back in. So Arkham Asylum reads, Psychiatric Care. Instead of having an encounter here, you may recover sanity by receiving psychiatric care. You may either regain 1 sanity for free or pay $2 to restore your sanity to its maximum value. So that's it for George's encounter. As for Roland, he's going shopping as well. Similar to the general store earlier, but here you're buying unique items. So first item up is a Nassel Key. It's a tome. Exhaust and spend 2 movement points to make a lore -2 check. If you pass, search the available gate markers for a gate of your choice and open it at your current location. Then lose 1 sanity and discard Nassel Key. If you fail, nothing happens. Interesting. That's during the movement phase. Second card. Warding of the Yellow Sign. When you gain this card, choose a location in Arkham and place this card there. No monsters may appear via gates at this location. Monsters that appear during encounters in this location may automatically be evaded. And Powder of Ibn Ghazi. Magical weapon. +9 to combat checks, lose 1 sanity and discard after use, and takes both hands. Well, that kind of opens up my options a little bit, because if I have no gates come up, I could potentially pull If I have no gates come up, I guess what I'm thinking is about that nozzle key. If I have no gates come up, I could potentially force one open. I could potentially force the split gate open and then try to close it. And then try to close it to win the game. But that's going to be a huge ask. Probably not one that's necessarily needed, because assuming nothing goes wrong, Joe will be the first player when they're coming out. Well, it does open up some possibilities. I think I will take it, though. I've got something of a plan kicking around in my head, and I don't like the power of Ibn Ghazi enough to want it as a magical weapon. I'd have preferred something that has a little more permanence to it. So we'll just take the nozzle key. Like I said, I'm thinking about ways I might be able to use that, but it's nothing I'm likely to be able to use now. So that will do it for Roland. That will do it for the Arkham Encounter phase. Otherworld Encounter phase next, and let's go say hello first to William. Alright, William's up first, and both of them are going to need red or yellow. Blue, no good. Green, no good. Green. What part of red or yellow did you not understand, William? That's another blue. Yellow. The unending blackness terrifies you. Pass a will -1 check. His will is 3 -1 is 2. Or lose 1 and 1 from fear and exhaustion. We can deal with that right now. We're not in... His sanity is fine, but his stamina is fine, but his sanity is in pretty rough shape. Joe, let's see if you go through as many cards as William did. Blue is still no good. Apparently you didn't learn anything from William. You really didn't learn anything from William. A slimy monster appears. Delightful. We find... Oh, a Lang Spider for Joe. -2 to sneak past, and what's his sneak? Sneak right now is 3. Do we want to try to sneak past it? We might as well try it. 'Cause I'm not concerned about the seal here. And actually, getting him lost in time and space would be very bad, because that would put another doom on Yig. A 1 will not sneak past it. Do I want to just fight it, or... How much did he take off? He takes 4? And he's overwhelming, so we're going to lose 1 no matter what. I think we'll spend a clue, see if we can try again to sneak past it. 3. We'll put 1 more clue into it. Like I said, I'm not concerned about sealing this gate. I just need to close it. And preferably not have another one pop up. There we go. Took me a couple clues, but we got past it. So, Lang Spider's been snuck past. Give that a good mix-up. That can move to the discard pile. This can come out of shot, and then we'll move back up top for the Mythos phase. We really need to see no gates in these next two cards. That might be a big ask, though. Alright, so that already failed. Black Cave is going to get another gate on it. It's a lurker gate, so let's see what we get here. We find the Abyss. It's a -2 gate, which puts a doom up every time you fail to close it. The clue will just go into the ether. Then we need a monster for that. I'll put the doom on Yig's track, so we're up to 4. And we find a goat spawn. -1 to try to sneak past. It's a hexagon monster. Physical resistance. -1 on the horror check or you lose a sanity. -2 on the combat check or you lose a health. 2 toughness to kill it. It's red bordered, so it's also fast, which is not great. Let's see. And we have slash, triangle, and star moving on white, hexagon on black. So Star, we said, moves on white, so he's moving to French Hill Streets. Goat Spawn is moving on black, so 1, 2 up to the Easttown Streets. And nothing else. We put the Doom on Yig. And then since it's a rumor, it gets discarded without effect. Then we need a monster for the experiment. I will remember this time. And we get the Hunting Horror going out on that. So that's a problem. Let's see. We have 6 on there, which means the terror level is going to be flying up to 10 in a hurry. I got to double check what the condition is for waking up the Ancient One with a terror limit. Terror level 10 and too many monsters. Equal to twice the normal monster limit. So if we end up with 14 monsters on the board, we'd awaken for the terror limit. We are at... We're at 6 monsters right now, and that goes off at 8 monsters. So... yeah, not finding a weapon there really hurt. Not finding a weapon at the... Not finding a weapon on Roland's Curiosity Shop encounter really hurt us. To the point where we may... do we have the time to do that? But what we're actually going to do in terms of the video... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7... I'm going to do 2 more... I'm going to do 2 more Mythos cards. And then we're going to... Then we're actually going to break and we'll do part 2 tomorrow. This is turning into a longer playthrough and I've got a fair amount going on today, so I kind of want to get this churning along. So that's how we're going to do that. Anyway, George will turn into our first player, so let's move into a new upkeep phase. First things first on the upkeep phase, George gains $2, and then he's got to roll for his retainer. That's a 4, so he keeps that. I think he is going to go... Question is, he's going to go join Roland or replace Roland in the Curiosity Shop, because we need to get some magical firepower badly. I think... I think he's going to... I think he's going to join Roland for now. I'm still deciding where and or if I want to use that nozzle key. But I think for now, we need to get through the deck and get some magical items out of it. So we can go try to deal with some of those monsters, because that is going off. That has potential to be where we start part 2, facing more than a little bit of catastrophe. But let's see what happens. Let's see what happens there. Let's move over next to Joe. Joe's sliders are going to stay as is. We need some way to be able to recover stamina, though, pretty quickly. But there's no help for that right now. Because, like I said, everything's going to stay as is for him, so that will do it for Joe. Let's move up to Roland. Roland rolling for his bank loan. That is a 5, so he does not have to pay. So that goes back there. Roland is actually going to stay put in the Curiosity Shop as he and George continue to work through the unique item deck, trying to find some magical weapons desperately. That will do it for Roland. Now let's move over to William. William is moving over to the second half of Relay with Joe. So I think all of his sliders are going to stay as is as well. That will do it for the upkeep phase. Let's go into the movement phase next, and we'll start off by saying hello to George. George's turn is going to have him move 1 to downtown streets, 2 to north side streets, and 3 up to the Curiosity Shop. That's it for his turn. We'll do Roland now, just because he's right here in shop, but he's actually staying put. Like I said, we need to get through this item deck and find some magic weapons pronto. That will do it for George, and Roland was technically supposed to be third, but once again, there will be no impact from what's going on with George and with Joe and William. Speaking of which, let's go say hello to them. Joe and William are going to go frolicking in the water, I guess, in Relay, as they move over to the second part of Relay. That will do it for Joe and William. That will do it for the for the movement phase. Arkham Encounter phase next. And let's go do some shopping with George and Roland. First 3 are for George, second 3 are for Roland. So first up for George, we find, besides the fact that I have no fingernails, Petrifying Solution. Physical weapon, +8 after combat checks, discard after use. This weapon ignores the physical resistance and endless special abilities. That could actually be very tempting, especially since I saw at least one endless monster. I think we just have the one. Yes, we just have the one in the mess. That would be very tempting for that reason alone. Next up, Milk of Shub-Niggurath. Discard it to move all non-spawn monsters in play to your location. Then reduce your sanity to 0 and go insane. That would have comboed with a time bomb if we would have kept that earlier. And the Golden Sword of Yahat-Tala. Magical weapon. Any phase. Exhaust before making a combat check to gain +5 to that check. The only thing I know I don't want is the Milk of Shub-Niggurath. So the question now is, what do I want between the Petrifying Solution or the Golden Sword of Yahat-Tala? This is a tough decision. The ability to take one of those monsters with Endless completely off the table is very appealing. But the thing I can't get past with that is it's a one-time use. That's the one thing I do not like about that Petrifying Solution. Of course, even getting it off the card back into the bag would be helpful right now as well. I think with all those concerns in mind, we're going to take the Golden Sword. Like I said, I just can't... I mean, it's... Granted, it's a one-time use per turn, but still, being able to refresh it instead of having it completely discarded on you is too much. To me, is too big a problem to ignore. So, Roland's 3 items next. Holy Water. See previous musings about Petrifying Solution. That's only +6. Also using both hands. Powder of Ibn Ghazi, which is +9 and cost to Sanity. And Dole Chance. Exhaust and spend 2 movement points to make a lore -2 check. If you pass, gain an ally, lose 2 Sanity, and discard Dole Chance. I think at this point it's the Powder of Ibn Ghazi for $2, or for $6. As much as I don't like the discard weapons, having two of them come up means I just take the biggest one I can find. So Roland gets the Powder of Ibn Ghazi. We'll probably send them both down after the rumor this next turn, but we'll see how everything unfolds there. Neither Joe and William are both in relay, so we'll go down to them in the other world encounter phase. Joe, William, I want you both to say it with me this time. Red or yellow? Red or yellow? Joe's up first. Joe, are you that dense? Are you being purposely dense, or are you just that dense? The stars are right. Shuffle the gate deck and keep drawing until you get an encounter of the right color. I believe that gets discarded. Doesn't say anything about shuffling that back in. That's very stuck. Wow. Alright, so we're still drawing for Joe's encounter. Let's try it again. A blue. We still cannot get this straight. Yellow and other. You stare into the face of madness. Roll 1 die for each point of sanity you have. Lose 1 sanity for each die that did not roll a success. If you don't go insane, gain a clue token for each die that rolled a success. Oh joy. So right now he has 4 sanity. So he loses a sanity per non-success, but gains a clue token per success. If this doesn't drive him insane. So, of course, he's lost in time and space, which puts a doom on Yig, and it'll give him a madness condition. Well, good thing William has rerolls for days, huh? Alright, so we'll give that a cut. And then Joe's Madness. Paranoia. Discard all of your allies. You can't gain any more allies. Upkeep. Lose 1 sanity if you're in the same area as another investigator. If you ever gain another Paranoia card, you're devoured. Delightful. So that goes away. And then William, can we please not have something that catastrophic happen? That should be discarded. First, we need to find a red or yellow card. Yellow, look at that. A horrible visage captures your gaze. Pass a will +0 check. His will right now is 3. I'll put a doom token on Joe so I know he's delayed. And we pass. So looking at relay, we avoid bad stuff. Right. So that will do it for the Otherworld Encounter phase. Let's move back up top for the Mythos phase. A Monster Surge now has real potential to be disastrous, because if we get a Monster Surge now, and we don't take anything off the Terrible Experiment, which we're going to try to during the Arkham Encounter phase this coming round, that rumor is going to go off and we're going to have huge problems on our hands. We'll probably have Yig wake up, and the game will be over after that. So let's see what happens here. Independence Square runs into a seal there, so that's all good. Clue will move to the Unnameable, which will have to sit there for a turn. Square and Diamond move on white, Circle on black. So that is nothing moving, actually. That's very fortunate. Blood Magic, which will replace our Curfew Enforced. So apparently it's all environments that just get replaced. I figured it was based on the keyword, so you could have like an urban card and then a mystic card as well, but apparently it's just an environment, so Blood Magic this time. Investigators who end their movement in Rivertown streets may choose to delve into dark mysteries using their life force. They roll dice equal to their stamina, and for every failed die, they lose 1 stamina. If this reduces them to 0, they're devoured and must start a new character. Otherwise, they gain 3 clue tokens. So that is in the Rivertown streets. And then we're going to go through one more round before we break for part 2. So, with that, let's move into Joe, and let's see what he's doing. Once again, I almost forgot the rumor. So before we jump into the upkeep phase, I gotta get better about remembering this. Maybe when we go up top of the Mythos phase, I'll just put the monster bag on the board. That way I actually remember. So this is monster number 7 going on the board, and we have Serpent People going up again. So I don't think we have to pass the evade check to try to fight anything on there. Do we? No, it doesn't say anything about that. So we are at 7 monsters on there, though. If we get to 8, we have a lot of problems on our hands. Anyway, thanks to being lost in time and space, Joe is doing a whole lot of Bubkiss this turn, so his upkeep phase is very short. Let's go up to Roland. Roland's bank loan and his expense account both kick in, so if Roland has less than $2, he gains $1. The only question is, so there's the $1, the question is, does he get to keep it? Rolling for the bank loan will tell us. Once I bring the dice tower a little bit better, once I bring it a little more into shot. That's set right? Yeah, I think that's set right. Roland does get to keep it, so that will move up to there. We'll put that back there. Roland and George, I think, are both going down to the Miskatonic University streets to try to get some of those monsters off of the rumor. So yeah, that's going to be a big problem that we need to deal with now. Let's see, he is going to be able to use friendly rivals on this because he's got no monster trophies to William's 6. Actually, 7. On the bright side, William's going to get the +1 on the fight or lore check, on the fight check to try to close his gate, but getting ahead of myself there. Let's move over to William next, though. Nothing special on upkeep. His fight is exactly where I want it to be. I get grapple, which will also be very helpful. And he's coming out of the woods to try to close that relay gate. That will do it for William. Very uneventful upkeep for him. Let's move down to George. George gets $2, and he has to roll for his retainer. He still has his retainer. That thing has been doing serious work for us all game. So George and Roland are going down to the Miskatonic University streets for a little bit of monster hunting on some pretty dangerous monsters at any rate. But that's it for the upkeep phase. We'll blow right past Joe going into the movement phase because he's lost in time, and we'll go say hello to Roland. Say it with me, kids, once again. We're doing this a smidge out of order, but no impact. So Roland is going to move 1 to the North Side streets, 2 to the Merchant District streets, 3 to Miskatonic University streets. George is going to join him there, doing the exact same thing. That's it for George. Let's go say hello to William. Our resident Gravedigger is moving down to the woods, getting an explored marker, so he's explored relay. That will do it for William. That will do it for the movement phase. Arkham Encounter phase next. Once again, we'll blow past Joe because he's lost in time and space, and we'll go say hello to Roland and George. I take it back. Since we can get all 3 of them in shot, we're actually going to do this in order. So Roland. What monster is Roland going to take on? Are we just going to bite the bullet and try to take the big boy out right away? That's a 4 sanity. Yikes! His will is not great at all. Actually, he's got 5 minus 3. He'd have 2 will on that. Still nightmarish 2. That one we might want to leave for... That one we might leave for George, actually. Yeah, I think we can do that. We'll leave the servitor for George. We'll try to take out the... Do we want to just take out some easy stuff? I really want to use the powder on something huge. And not just hugely dangerous either. This is base fight. Try to deal with that fire vampire that's minus 2? Yikes. Alright, well, what we can do here is we'll try to defeat a couple of monsters here. So we'll start off with having Roland use his base fight against the serpent people. So he's just going to be using his base fight. Minus 1 in the horror check, or he loses 2 sanity. His will right now is a 3, so he gets 2 dice. We're going to need those clues later, so I think I'm just going to fail that out. I'm mostly trying to do this so I can get the 3 bonus dice. And then his fight is 3 minus 2 is 1. Oh, this is so bad. Actually, you know what? We're going to pretend I did something during the movement phase that I could have done. We'll give Roland the axe. We'll pretend that we did that. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, no, we're not going to do that. So 3 minus 2 is 1. We might actually need the clue here. Hopefully not, though. Yeah, we'll spend a clue to reroll. I do want to make sure I have at least 1 so I can reroll against something big. Okay, so we do take out the serpent people, which means while it's a monster trophy, I can spend it after failing a combat check to add 3 bonus dice to the roll. Alright, so now the question is, do we go for the home run? Actually, that's going to cost us sanity. We're going to have to try to take something out with us then. We might actually be able to have dodged catastrophe, potentially. Nightmarish is going to send him to Arkham Asylum. I think Roland will be done with that for the turn. Actually, he would have had a +1 on the combat check anyway, so we'll give him the clue back. I forgot he was getting an extra combat die because of friendly rivals with William. So we're fine. So we're fine there. We'll keep the clue, and we'll leave that. I think that will do for Roland. William is going to be trying to close the relay gate. He's using his fight to do it. 4 minus 1 is 3, but that's going to bump back up to 2 because Roland has a gate trophy, whereas William does not. And since we're grappling, 4 is enough work for William. Or we roll a 6 naturally. So we do close relay. We'll spend 2 clues and 3 monster trophies. I'll spend the Star Spawn, the Elder Thing, and the Fire Vampire. And I'm going to bury them deep. So I'm returning them to the box. So they're the 2 clues and 3 monster trophies. Because of Secrets of the Dead is how William's able to spend the monster trophies as clues. So those are going back to the box. We get our 3rd blue seal on the board. And we get to take plus monsters, right? Yes, plus monsters off the board. We do check the outskirts and the sky, but we don't check the rumor. Not that I think there are any, just out of curiosity's sake, on here. There are not. Okay, so that's it for William. George, is he going to try to take something on? Good question. Getting the Servitor off the board is still probably a good plan. He can deal with losing 4 sanity more easily, I think, than than Roland could. Nightmarish 1 is not great either. Physical resistance, nightmarish, and overwhelming on the polyp. Let's take on the flying polyp. I want to try to get some of these big monsters off of this rumor, because if that rumor goes off, we're just going to be facing a whole lot of problems. So he starts off with a -2 on the will check, which actually he just fails that outright, so he's going to lose 4 sanity. I've got to get him a will boost of some kind. Then he's going to spend another sanity in trying to cast Shriveling, which is 3 minus 1 is 2 dice. Which I'll drop in there. And unfortunately, I have no clues to help with this. He does cast Shriveling, at least. So he's at a 6. He's going to exhaust the Golden Sword to go up to 11. Plus base fight of 2 is 13. Minus 3 is 10. And he needs 3 successes. Unfortunately, he's got no clues to throw at this, though. That's not a great spot to be in. Yuck. Well, that's going to send him to the hospital, which will give him an injury condition. Similar to the Madnesses, just for physical. No, it was worth a shot anyway. Right, then our injury for poor George. Sprained ankle, -1 speed. Oh, fantastic. You can't spend more than 2 clue tokens to add any speed check. If you ever gain another sprained ankle card, you're devoured. Oh, fantastic. His speed is right now at his max of 3, so that's not great at all. But We at least, I think, have managed to... Well, we've still got a big problem in the Miskatonic University streets, but let's move back up top for the Mythos phase. This will be our last Mythos card for part 1, so let's see what we've got here. A gate opening at the Historical Society, which is going to shortcut the clue to the Silver Twilight Lodge. We'll put the Doom up on Yig. Get the gate out. Normal gate coming out. The Great Hall of Celiano, -1 to close the Stargate, and we said that was going to the Historical Society. So we need a monster to go with it. The Elder thing is back. We'll go through this in detail when if we actually have to fight it. That's going to the Historical Society. We saw that earlier when William took... Does that have started? That might have been a monster trophy that William started the game with. I'm going to leave the monster bag right here because I will need it for that stupid rumor. We moved... Actually, I'm going to get this out of the way for now because I need to be able to see where monsters are moving. Moon is moving on white. Cross is moving on black, which right now we have the Serpent People. That's a moon monster, so that'll move to the downtown streets. Horror at Groundbreaking headline: An ancient stone is disturbed by the construction, releasing 2 monsters into the Miskatonic University streets. Oh, this is bad. This is very bad. Because if these come out and they're tough monsters, Roland is probably going with... Okay, so we're going to end up with a chain of events here that could potentially be a very big problem, but I'll explain more about that when we see what monsters actually come out. So we're going to get these 2 out. There we are. First up we find... The absolute last monster I wanted to see right now is a cultist. -3 to sneak... Actually, this is not on the list of monsters I want to see right now, but -3 to sneak past. Yeah. Cthulhu Fatagan. I'm not even going to try to pronounce all that gibberish. No horror check. +0 on the combat check. Lose 1... combat damage is actually 4 stamina. That's right. So if you fail, you take 1 health to kill it. That's easy to kill, but it is going to put a Doom on Yig, which could be problematic. And a Dark Young, which is probably going to send Roland either to the hospital or more likely to Arkham Asylum. But let's take a look here. Physical resistance, Nightmarish 1, meaning even if you pass the sanity check, even if you pass the horror check, you lose 1 sanity. Same thing with overwhelming and damage. +0 on the horror check or lose 3 sanity. -1 on the combat check or lose 3 health, 3 toughness to kill it. So Roland's actually got a big problem brewing there. And then we need a new monster for the rumor. That's going to bring us up to 7. We've got a Lang Spider going up there. Fantastic. Okay, so I was debating about what I want to do here. We're actually going to break here for part 2, which will partially give me time, which will mostly give me time to get this moving, and then give me some time to get situated before the rest of my day unfolds. And it'll also give me some time to think about how I want to get out of this disaster that's brewing. or if I even am getting out of this. So I will see you guys tomorrow. This first part will probably go up later in the evening as I'm filming this. And I'll see you guys tomorrow as well for part 2. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.